Hello and welcome to Big Picture. I am Vishal Dahiya and today we will take up the issue of smart policing. The Vice President of India, Venkaiah Naidu, has stressed on the need to make policing and police station people-centric and receptive. Addressing a national seminar on smart policing, he suggested tapping the IT potential in investigation and safety and security management. Vice President Naidu also emphasized on the need to address a shortage of manpower, improving transport and communication facilities and other aspects of police reforms as suggested by the Supreme Court. So where do we stand in terms of police reforms and what exactly is smart policing? For more on this, we're joined by a distinguished panel of guests in the studio today. Let me first introduce the guests to you, beginning with we have with us Mr. Balmiki Prasad Singh, a former Home Secretary and former Governor as well. We also have with us Mr. N. Ramachandran, former DGP of Assam and Meghalaya and founder president of Indian Police Foundation. And we have Mr. Chakshu Roy, the head of outreach from PRS Legislative Research. And we're also joined by Dr. Vikram Singh, former DGP of Uttar Pradesh from Lucknow here on the show. Let me begin with you, Mr. Ramachandran, and let's try and break it down for our viewers and let's try and take it one by one. What is it that we try to convey when we say smart policing? Now, this is for the first time, this was talked about by Prime Minister Modi in his address to the DGP IGP conference in 2014.
That's right, yeah. So, smart policing was unveiled. That is a kind of a vision of the Indian Prime Minister, Mr. Modi, when he addressed the DGP's conference in the year 2014 when, in Guwahati, when he unveiled a series of qualities that should be the aspirations for the Indian police. And out of these several ingredients, we can put them in four different, buckets. Mm-hmm. One would be what may be called sensitivity and responsiveness of the police to the people. That is the first aspect of it. Mm-hmm. And the other is, certain kind of being equipped properly, like being a modern police force with proper mobility and, those kind of equipment of the police, including the forensic equipment. Mm-hmm. And the third is about technology in the larger sense, especially the technology of today, which brings up two things.
Okay.
One is about, technology makes it possible for criminals sitting anywhere in the world mm-hmm. to commit crime anywhere else in the world with precision and with speed. So, technology sort of makes life very difficult for the police. But at the same time, technology also empowers the police tremendously. Technology can be leveraged by the police to speed up its investigation, to make sure that its investigation is done accurately, and also not only investigation of cases, but also reaching police services to the citizens. Mm-hmm. So, technology is also hugely empowering to the police.
Okay.
And lastly, of course, the Prime Minister also mentioned about training, the importance of training. So, training is also again an enabler for achieving what is called a modern, professionally efficient and responsive, sensitive police.
Okay. So that's what sums up, entirely the concept of smart policing. Let me bring in Mr. BP Singh here. And Mr. Singh, you've been on both sides of the line here, as in Home Secretary as well as a governor also. But now, if we equate smart policing with the kind of situation we have and the kind of requirements our police forces have in terms of the reforms which have to be done structurally, internally, as well as in terms of equipment, in terms of facilities as well, how would you look at the entire situation?
I must tell you, since the Honorable Prime Minister Narendra Modi ji mentioned this at Guwahati. In 1965, I joined Guwahati as Assistant Commissioner at Guwahati, Kamrup. We had no traffic constables in the city. Many districts had no police. Mm-hmm. So after that we had the traffic constables. 8 years later, in 73, when I became Deputy Commissioner, the head of the district, KPS Gill, he was my senior SP. We the capital had shifted, and one VIP had passed away, great Congress leader. The chief minister wanted to give him the state funeral. Nobody knew. I had the theoretical knowledge, so I guided the police what to do. Things have changed. Today, as we are talking about a smart police and technology application, the nature of crime has changed. Plus, by the time this smartness concept of technology gets embedded into the system, technology itself will change. You will have artificial intelligence. You have to do reading. So, it is constantly on change. Unfortunately, our police is still under the grip of the traditional British Raj mindset, both in regards to their loyalty, both in regards to their professional abilities, and things are not changing because of which you mentioned, quoting the Prime Minister, lack of training, lack of political and police relationship. What is necessary for smart policing, according to me, both as a district magistrate and as Home Secretary and this, you know, your police stations are ill-equipped. So I had suggested then, which unfortunately was not accepted when I was, that all police stations, which were full-fledged police stations on 26th January 1950 in the country, under the new republic, they should be upgraded to catch up with the modern standards of policing. Similarly, I had suggested again in writing that all jails, because criminal justice system is very important, again on that date, 26 January 1950, should, depending upon their area and all that, should have the national standard. This would have required at that time about 2,000 crores. But unfortunately, expenditure on police reforms does not get high priority. Thankfully, last year, I think, the sum of, I don't remember the amount, 8,000 crores or 5,000 crores. How much was that?
No, disbursed through the states now.
Yes.
Yes.
So that has been sanctioned.
Organization funds, yeah.
And when I was Home Secretary, sharing of intelligence has taken place. Earlier, the system was that if a crime takes place, our head office of the police, that is DGP or Commissioner of Police, will send it to the other DGP, and that DGP will inform the down below the system. So what happens? There's somebody committing crime here in Delhi, running into UP, which takes hardly half an hour, or to Haryana. Our system will have information has to flow from that route. Now today it is simultaneously. Things are moving, but I am not happy with the state of affairs.
Things are moving, but they will have to move much faster to keep pace with the kind of changing environment we are in. Let me bring in another ex-IPS officer here and somebody who held the charge of a state, Dr. Vikram Singh, the former DGP of Uttar Pradesh. Dr. Singh, if we look at the figures and if we go by what Mr. Ramachandran and Mr. BP Singh is also pointing out, the figures state that on 1st of January 2017, the police population ratio in our country was 151 per lakh against the sanctioned ratio of 193. Also, a year later, the number of women police personnel was less than 10% of the total strength approximately. So these are the things which need to be focused upon to ensure that smart policing which we are talking about, sensitivity as well as their presence to try and check the crime.
Very true, Mr. Vishal. Words of profound wisdom from Mr. Singh and Mr. Ramachandran, a very dear friend. Smartness does not mean putting on a proper uniform. I would say what worked yesterday will not work today. Mr. Singh had mentioned the huge number of vacancies. No police force in the country has less than 30% of vacancies. On one hand, you have wide unemployment, and on the other hand, there is an anachronism that you have 30% of vacancies. Why? They need to be filled up.
Okay.
The number of women police officers is abysmally low. And constant improvement, constant innovation is the only key to success in times to come, because the pattern of crime, the range of crime, the manner of crime, I will give you just two examples. 150 years of dacoity or banditry would not equal a single scam. The entire banditry would translate into about 100 crores, and a single scam of Colgate scam or 2G scam would run into lakhs of crores. So that is where the dimension of crime has changed. Cyber crime. You see what happened in Punjab. The ISI, in fact, used the drones to drop AK-47s, ammunition and satellite phones. Our communication has to be upgraded. It has to be the state of the art. The drone technology has to be improved. And Mr. Singh mentioned artificial intelligence. I would mention two more. Robotics, big data analysis, and also the fact that we need to be in constant touch. Intelligence sharing has to be real time. It cannot be just be on the basis of wireless or personal phone calls. Real time sharing of intelligence, because crime alone is cross border, it is international, and terrorism alone can take on most of the police forces and are the best. We have to put our best foot forward. Now, what are the options? Smart policing would indeed mean, Sir John Major said, England needs teachers, nurses, and police officers. And here, when we talk of police officers, a police officer is an epitome of unfriendly, non-people friendly, a person who's oppressive. Thanks to the Police Act of 1861, it is feudal and it is meant to perpetrate the wishes of a government. Nothing wrong in that. But when it becomes oppressive, when it becomes non-friendly, Mr. Vishal, you would never even heard of a haunted police station, because when the people don't go, even ghosts don't go to police station. And I have served in the police for 30 years, know what I'm talking about. You really have to do something drastic to give yourself an image changeover that you are people friendly. Whatever the Jan Sampark Pakhwadas, Mr. Vishal, we are doing. But if the DNA has not been changed, that mutagenic variation does not come, I don't think you will have ever an image of being people friendly. One, the technology, the only technology that we police officers knew, Mr. Ramachandran would know, is a lathi, a bulletproof jacket, a wireless set. That was all the technology. Now, even the mafia and the crime syndicates have a higher level of technology than most of the police forces. Do you mean to say for a moment that we'll become smart if we're not a generation ahead of it? It requires a rethinking, constant upgradation, innovation, and the state-of-the-art technology if we are to emerge successful and go by the wishes of our Honorable Prime Minister that we have to be smart. Smart just means that you don't have to look smart, you have to behave smart, act smart, and deliver smart.
Okay, smart means it'll have to be delivered smart as well, and these are the aspects there. It's not only about image makeover, but it's also about infrastructure makeover and using more the information technology platforms. That brings us to the question that this is not the first time that these points have been made. In fact, these points have been made time and again by several committees, by several commissions, and by the Supreme Court itself. Let's go to Chakshu here on the journey of police reform. So what all has been said, how many times it has been said, and what all has been done so far?
Vishal, I think, the problems with police reform and the problems for strengthening our police force have been discussed on a number of occasions. I think the first one was the National Police Commission. That was earlier in the late 1970s to 80s. I think they came out with 8 reports, a comprehensive set of recommendations. The Supreme Court then asked a senior police officer, Mr. Ribeiro, to set up a committee to find out as to what happened to the recommendations made by the National Police Commission. After that, there was the Padmanabhiya Committee, then there was the Malimat Committee. Finally, Mr. Soli Sorabji headed a committee to draft a National Police Act. Thereafter, the Model Police Act, and thereafter, the historic judgment in the Prakash Singh case. To put all of this in perspective, right, and we have an extremely distinguished panel today. To put this in perspective, one, trust in the police force is low. A survey of 15,000 respondents indicated that less than 25% of the respondents trusted the police highly. The number for the army was much higher at about 54%. There is a huge number of vacancies. A number of panelists have pointed out. The vacancies range anywhere between 25 to 30%. in the state police forces and 7 to 8% in the central police forces. And while these are average numbers, number for example, you mentioned about the fact as to that the police population ratio is about 155 or 154 policemen.
It was 151 in 2017.
But that's an average for the country. For states like Uttar Pradesh, Bihar, West Bengal, Andhra Pradesh,
it might vary.
The number might actually be much lower. And why is that happening? That's happening because the amount of money that our states spending on police forces is actually fairly less. If I look at the numbers for the last 4 or 5 years, the budgeted expenditure on our police forces in the states was about anywhere between 3.5% to 4%. Now, what does 3.5% and 4% get you? One, it does not get you adequate number of police officers. To give you a benchmark number, the United Nations recommends that there should be about 222 policemen per lakh of population. What does it get you? The crime rate between 2005 to 2015 increased by 28%. But the conviction rate for IPC crimes in 2015 was only 47%. And the Law Commission pointed out, and the reason that this conviction rate is so low in IPC crimes is because of lack of good quality investigation. Earlier in the program we talked about modernization of police forces. The states only utilized about 14% of the budget for modernization of police forces. And now when we talk about police reforms, we also talk about the fact that the legislative reforms, the Supreme Court recommended a set of measures to be taken. One of those measures was how do you insulate the police from political interference? And when the draft model act was made, 17 states have implemented it, but they have implemented it in varying levels of compliance with the Supreme Court guidelines. Some of them have implemented fully, some of them have implemented only part of it.
Okay.
So the journey for that, police reform that has to take place legislatively, it has to take place financially in terms of allocation of resources, it has to take place in terms of how that resources are going to be used. And it then also all of this has to come together to work towards smart policing.
Okay, so all stakeholders will have to make that effort out there. Mr. Ramachandran, that brings us to the question that, from late 70s onwards, there have been several commissions, there have been several committees. In fact, the Supreme Court itself has given directives, as Chakshu was pointing out. But why is it that we as a nation have not been able to push through these police reforms, and what needs to be done to try and achieve that? Because it's imperative that we achieve our targets in police reforms sooner possible.
So police reforms, in my opinion, it has two components. One is about internal housekeeping, what is called as internal reforms, which are well within the purview of the police officers, the leaders themselves. Like, for example, today also in our discussions, we were pointing out that you don't need a political sanction for you to behave well with the complainant who walks into the police station. So those kind of things, training the policemen well, or instilling the right kind of attitudes in them. So these are things which can be done by the police leaders by paying a little more attention.
Within the force itself.
Within the force itself. And then there is this large component of external interference.
Infrastructure reforms.
No, interference.
Okay.
Infrastructure will come
a little later.
So this interference is a huge problem. First of all, we are in a democracy, and there has to be democratic oversight of the police. It is granted. But that democratic oversight should not amount to interfering in who should be arrested, who should not be arrested. You fetch this case. That kind of interference cannot be accepted at any cost. So while police should be brought definitely under democratic oversight, police should be freed up from these kind of day-to-day illegal interferences from external forces.
And just to supplement Mr. Ramachandran, one of the things that the Supreme Court had actually said was to guarantee a minimum tenure for senior police officers so that they could act and work in their areas, something that has not been implemented so far.
Okay, let me bring in DGP Vikram Singh here on this aspect. Mr. Singh, from your perspective as well, you spoke about what all needs to be done from here onwards. But a lot has been said, and we've not done most of what the committees or the commissions or the Supreme Court itself has recommended.
Mr. Vishal, I'll give you the two observations of Honorable Chief Justices of India. The first, the sitting justice said, what can I do when most of the chief ministers of the state are not willing to cooperate? This is the helplessness of a sitting Honorable Chief Justice. Chief Justice Kehar Singh said, police reforms seem to be going on and on and on forever. If this is the state of affairs in our country, then I have personal knowledge of the fact. I have been privy to conversation with very senior people who matter in politics of this country. And they confessed that if the police reforms to be in position, how will we indulge in politics? Meaning thereby that an infirm and a supine police force is an essential ingredient of politics today. Okay. Therefore, I dare say, that none of the political parties seem to be serious in implementing the solemn directives of the Supreme Court, and that is why we are where we are.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Mr. Singh, that question of political interference seems to be riling, all the top brass in the police force as well. But having said that, with the kind of statements which have come in from the leadership now, Prime Minister saying so in 2014, the Vice President saying it, repeating the same sense and making more, urgency of the situation in seminars and today as well. It is clearly now pointed out that the time has come to move on towards much further reforms, infrastructure reforms, making it more sensitive, internal reforms as well, and obviously ensure that the interference part is taken care of.
I must tell you that it is the personality of the Chief Minister which matters in the districts. Now, there are few tendencies which were not there in my time, which I am hearing, is that now MLAs go to police stations. MLAs were not to go to police stations. They were to go to the district magistrates or to the superintendents of police. The tradition was that when a poor man meets a deputy commissioner, goes with a petition to deputy commissioner, whatever may be his problem, he knew he will get justice. When a poor man goes to SP, whatever may be his police atrocity or whatever may be his problem, he will get justice. Today the focus has shifted from the poor to the rich to the political class, and it is shifting. So it is necessary therefore for the chief ministers to realize which MLAs are going to police stations.
Okay.
That is political interference in judicial work. Then, second point I must tell you, you mentioned, Mr. Roy, about finance. I made some study, I can't give you the figure, I don't recall. But whenever there was a financial crunch, two departments suffered, culture and police. They will reduce the budget of both culture and police.
Mr. Ramachandran seems to agree with you there.
Yes, because these are, according to them, these are harmless. One chief minister cut the police budget, and I was then in the ministry. I was so angry with that chief minister, but I can't do. I have to be nice to the chief minister. So I called the DGP. I said, you withdraw his security, and I will withdraw mine. How can you cut police budget? Then chief minister came to know. He went to the prime minister. He phoned me. I said, you give him money, how much he wants. I can't give him from police budget. I can't be a party to this. Some of these things are practical issues, and to which you referred to, and the former DGP also referred to that. Yes, I know him. I know him very well.
So when
he
it
referred
comes
to.
So when it comes to all these issues, they're all intertwined, they're all interlinked, Mr. Ramachandran. And when we talk about interference, simultaneously we will also have to look at the fact that, as Mr. Singh is pointing out, the police force will have to be made more sensitive as well, so that the interference itself is cut down, because the common man should feel confident interacting with the police personnel out there in the police station or on the street as well.
Absolutely. But before I come to this, I just wanted to mention that in most of the states, the police budget is, they run on a shoestring. Like, as well as I know of 2 states, my cadre is 2 states, in fact, as Assam and Meghalaya, as well as some other states with whom I am connected. I know that most of the police organizations get about 95 to 96% of the entire money that you get goes only for salaries.
Okay.
So very little money is left for the DGP to equip the police or modernize the police.
Okay.
That is one major issue.
I
Then
will
coming
tell
back
you
to
one minute, I will tell
Yeah.
you. Whenever you are free, you have finished?
Yeah.
coming back to the sensitivity part of it. In fact, the entire conversation in the Indian Police Foundation is about improving sensitivity and citizen centricity.
Okay.
That is the focus of the Indian Police Foundation, and we try and hold various.
Make it more sensitive.
Absolutely.
So that's
I
what
will,
the crux
I will
is.
just
Yes.
say one line. We must pay tribute to the Indian police constables. Despite these limitations, they are serving the country so well that we have a vibrant democracy.
Okay.
I must give you an example related to this. When I was Union Home Secretary, we sent NSG people abroad for training, and they were one of the best in the world.
Okay. Okay. So there it is, as our guests have pointed out, all of them, all the stakeholders will need to go ahead and take a grip of the situation here to try and find solutions to all the problems when we talk about police reforms or even smart policing. The police will have to be made more sensitive to the citizens, and also their problems will have to be addressed by the leaders in the police force as well as the political leadership. We'll come back again on Monday with a different topic and different set of guests. Till then, keep watching Rajya Sabha Television.